everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here today. I'm Eileen Drolette. I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator at the Boulder Chamber, and I'll be facilitating the panel today. The Boulder Chamber and Workforce Boulder County are collaborating to bring you the Pathways to Success webinar series, the goal of which is to give young adults a greater perspective on what it's like to be a working professional in Colorado's top industries. And on today's panel, we'll be exploring the aerospace and engineering sector. During the panel, we'll have about 30 to 35 minutes of panelist discussion, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout the panel, and we'll get to them at the end. Okay, I'm going to start off by introducing the panelists that we have today. First up, we have Paula Burns joining us from BAE Systems. She is the Vice President and General Manager of the Tactical Solutions Strategic Business Unit for BAE Systems Space and Mission Systems sector, overseeing the sector's portfolio of tactical mission systems and products, enabling warfighters to go forward bravely and return home safely. She's also an accomplished aviator. She received a BA in American History and commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy at the University of Pennsylvania. She then attended naval aviator training, earning her wings in 1987, and went on to serve as a combat support pilot. Then she later served as the first female mountain search and rescue pilot flying the HH-1N Huey, and notably was credited with saving 25 lives and conducting over 35 rescues in just 1 year. She went on to serve as a C-130 pilot in the Air National Guard in various missions, including supporting NATO in the Kosovo War, and spent the last 4 years of her military service as the Inspector General for the Colorado Air National Guard before retiring from the military in 2008. She then went on to get her MBA from the University of Denver. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Paula. Next up, we have Amy Rogan and David Irish from Northrop Grumman, Amy is a capture manager for Northrop Grumman, where she works with diverse teams of subject matter experts to offer innovative solutions to critical government missions that benefit the security of the U.S. and our allies. She is part of the Payload and Ground Systems Division, focusing on ground systems to support space-based missile warning and sensing. Amy has been with Northrop Grumman for 6 years, and she has a bachelor's degree and master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Illinois, Chicago. Thank you for joining us, Amy. Also on the same screen, we have David. David is the Site Operations Manager here at the Boulder campus. David joined Northrop Grumman in March 2020 as a facilities engineer before moving to Boulder, Colorado, and becoming the facilities manager, and later expanding his role and staff at the Boulder campus as the Site Operations Manager. In this role, he oversees the facilities department, shipping and receiving, real estate transactions, physical and informational security, as well as capital planning for the operational exploitation systems portfolio. He holds a Master of Science in Organizational Leadership from University of Colorado Boulder and a bachelor's in Electrical and Computer Engineering from California Baptist University. He is also a United States Marine Corps veteran. I think we have a really impressive panel and just a really robust range of different career journeys in both engineering and aerospace. But I'd love to give you all a chance to introduce yourself as well. So Paula, would you like to kick us off? Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and what you do now?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. So I run a significant portion of what is now BAE Systems and Mission Solutions business. If you've been around Boulder for a while, you'll probably remember it as Ball Aerospace. So I was at Ball Aerospace for 20 years, and so we all now say we're part of the company, but BAE is kind of a new name in the Colorado aerospace domain, and that acquisition's been going along really well. It makes a lot of changes for us. There's a lot of opportunity and possibilities there. I will say, it looks like the other people a little earlier in their career, so I'm trying to remember back, the 2 decades or 2.5 decades for some of the advice, but maybe I have some of the long-term wisdom for our students and guests on board. I will tell you, I am number 6 of 8 kids. I grew up north of Boston. I went to University of Pennsylvania. My parents ran out of college money because they had 6 college kids at the same time. And so I joined ROTC because someone told me about it, and I had no idea really what I was getting into, but I ended up with an ROTC scholarship and finishing out my time at University of Pennsylvania, which really would not have been possible. I mean, I was really looking at going home and getting a job because the money just wasn't there. So I think you'll hear from my history that I don't know that I necessarily had a path. I just had great opportunities open up for me along the way. And I think there are some keys to how you work and how you work with others that makes that more likely to happen for you. Went right in the service, did all the flying things that Eileen mentioned to you. It was a blast, loved it. Flew all Marine Corps aircraft, in case you didn't notice that, Marine. And when I got out, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. As a matter of fact, I've never really known what I've wanted to do. And so for those of you who know, fantastic. Pursue it. See if you're right. See if you love it. For those of you who really don't know, please don't panic. It's okay. You know, start to think about the things you enjoy and you like and move on from there. So I did a bunch of different stuff. I went to chef school. I became a chef. I was a consultant. And then I finally knocked down the door at Ball Aerospace when they weren't really hiring that much. And I've been here ever since. And we can talk more through the panel. But I guess I would say it's been a great choice for me because of the integrity of the company. And that was one of the most important things to me coming out of the service, was more how we did our work and with the values we did it than anything else.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Paula. I'm going to hand it off next to Amy and David.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Rogan. As mentioned, I have a background in mechanical engineering. Growing up, I really loved tearing things apart and figuring out how they worked, and it drove my family absolutely insane, but led me along the path of engineering so I could figure out even bigger things and how they worked, and really understanding that. Having always had a passion for space, I initially wanted to do aerospace engineering, something really specific, and was kind of talked down to doing something a little bit more broad, because mechanical has applications across pretty much all industry. So I went on in college. Actually, in high school, I was a game mechanic at Chuck E. Cheese, and so that was super fun. Still loving the puzzle, getting to take things apart, seeing what's inside. I started with a company called Rexnord Aerospace right out of my master's degree. They were a manufacturing company, similar to Paula. I also didn't know what I was going to do, so I really took the first job that lands. And they were moving moving manufacturing facilities from one to the next. So that was really the project I was working on, and I got that first job as a temp. So to those of you in high school and college, I would definitely not steer away from opportunities, even if they are temp positions and they're not necessarily as coveted as full-time roles, but they're definitely an entry into industry to get you that experience, and oftentimes do lead to an offer. I joined Northrop 6 years ago at our Rolling Meadows site in Illinois, which is with Mission Systems, as a process engineer in manufacturing. That was a lot of fun. I was working a lot of different programs. The way we handled manufacturing there was very different than the company I had just left that was super high volume. Moving to Northrop, we do a lot more complex items at much lower volume. So we had technicians doing the work and process engineers overseeing that. Then I moved out to Colorado, which I'm very thrilled to be here, as a hardware engineer, where we didn't have technicians. We built a handful of big systems, and it was the hardware engineers that built everything from the cables to populating the racks, doing all of the testing. So really got to do end to end on that system. And I kind of pushed my management to give me some stretch assignments, because I really, really like having my hands in multiple cookie jars. And that led me into the world of capture, which is new business to the company, working with the customer to find answers to solutions they really need. So that's been a lot of fun working with diverse teams and kind of making sure everything goes in the right direction to get a compelling offer together. So I've really enjoyed my time here at Northrop and plan to be here for the rest of my career.
That's really awesome. Thank you for sharing. David, can you tell us next what brought you to Northrop Grumman and any other professional experience, educational experience that you can elaborate on?
Yeah. So, hi, I'm David Irish. I grew up in a small town in Oregon of like 700 people. So, not a whole lot of exposure to STEM formally through education, but I knew from the time I was 8 that I wanted to be an electrical engineer. From a take your kid to work day, I went with my uncle. He was a lead engineer for Portland General Electric in Portland, Oregon. And ever since then, I kind of strived to find that education. So, kind of along the lines of what our other panelist was talking about some people know what they want to do, other people don't. I knew for a fact at 8 years old I wanted to be an electrical engineer. I had a small deviation, I guess, from that. I went into the Marine Corps. That was primarily to fund college. Coming from a small town, we didn't necessarily have a lot of opportunities, so I used the Marine Corps as a platform to help myself with education. I got exposed to aircraft there. I became an aircraft rescue firefighter and hazmat technician. So that's where I got my security clearance and where I got exposure to Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and all the aerospace industry in general. Then I did my undergrad. My first job out of college was actually in small scale electronics, where we designed laser light systems for residential use, like the things people use for Halloween and for Christmas to display on their houses. And then from there, I made a move into consulting engineering, where we worked specifically in oil and gas, movement, storage, and refining. And then the market kind of started to dip a little bit. So then I made a move into pulp and paper. And then from pulp and paper, I finally found a job in Northrop Grumman as a facilities engineer. My kind of MO through my career has been I'm kind of afraid of stagnation. I don't like sitting still. So you can kind of see that through the changes in industries and the experience that I've had through my career. And that is ultimately what led me to Northrop Grumman. I started as a facilities engineer, and then I moved into management. And then I've just been moving through the management chain since coming here 5 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And since you're already on the screen, I think we'll kind of keep you on there to jump to the next question. Could you tell us what surprised you about your career journey? And I know, Amy, you kind of touched on this a little bit, kind of figuring out your career path. But yeah, could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, I kind of took the first job that stuck, and through that kind of picked out what I liked and what I didn't like. I didn't love being on just one product line. So when I moved from my first company to Northrop, I was able to be on 6 different programs at the same time, which was a fun and interesting challenge. There were certain things I liked, certain things I didn't like, and I would really suggest kind of picking those out, because you don't know until you know, and haven't experienced things until they happen to you. So the surprising thing to me, moving from being a process engineer to a hardware engineer, was that I moved from 6 programs to being on 1 program, not really understanding that that wasn't a great fit for me. So I kind of surprised myself once I got fully up to speed. I was looking for the next thing. I didn't know what capture was. I didn't know anything about the business end, since I've only really been on existing or dying programs that are towards the end of their life. It was a very big change to move to pre-program phase, where this is just an idea. So that's been a very exciting new thing. The fun thing about capture and new business is that it's constantly changing. You get to work on different projects. You're working with different customers and different teams, and the life cycle of a capture is much shorter than the life cycle of a program. It could be anywhere from a quick, like 3-month turnaround on this project. We could have longer term captures that are more like 3 years, but typically capture managers are working on multiple at a time. So this was an entirely new role for me. I started about a year and a half ago, and I've really enjoyed it, and highly recommend, like I mentioned before, pressing leadership for some stretch assignments so that you can actually see what's out there. Northrop Grumman has a really great pathways program set up where you can try 3 different types of engineering along the way. And it's not even just restricted to engineering. We have business management as well, and some other, I think, capture. We have some rotations as well. So it's been a really great program for those who are able to get into it. But if you're not, at least at Northrop, it's highly recommended for you to move around. Company wants you to be happy and find something that you'll thrive in. So my biggest recommendation would be to don't stop until you find something that you enjoy. Life's way too short to not like the work that you do, and really ask for those opportunities because they aren't usually just handed to you.
I love that insight. Thank you. David, can you tell us what surprised you about your career journey? I know you said you knew from when you were 8 that you wanted to be an engineer, but what in that pathway surprised you?
So I think for me, what surprised me the most is the applicability of my experience in the Marine Corps towards life as an engineer. The groundwork that I got, the confidence building that I got from being in the Marine Corps, and then also as a firefighter in the Marine Corps, learning to handle myself in stressful situations. It really set me up for a lot of the things I did when I was still doing field engineering, or like right now when we have critical situations, it helps me keep a cool head and resolve the issue without panicking, helping other people stay calm. So I think that was really good for me as a basis, and it was kind of unexpected because I didn't go there for that necessarily, but it was helpful to my overall career. Also, I knew I wanted to be an electrical engineer, and I did that, and now I'm in management for a group that there's electrical engineering as a part of it, but it's a very minor part of my job. So also being open to as your career develops and you achieve those goals, that you change and things around you will change, and your interests and what drives you will also change.
Okay, awesome. I think you pulled out a really good point there, that there's just kind of these unexpected twists and turns in someone's career journey, and that each step along the way kind of brings that value and insight. So it's not always a linear A to B path. Paula, could you please tell us next what surprised you about your career journey?
Gosh, I think Amy and David hit on 2 of the big ones. I think the breadth and the diversity of the opportunities that are out there, and just don't be him. And I think, like David, you come out of the military and you've been in some pretty high stress and potentially life or death situations. You're not going to see that in corporate America. And so it's funny, I'll look around at my team sometimes and I'm like, nobody's dying, right? Like, it's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And so, what's the worst that can happen on a stretch assignment? You goof something up, someone's going to help you out. Typically, there are people around who have your back. If you've gotten a stretch assignment, there are people who are watching out for you, and they'll help you out. So I would say just the breadth of those opportunities, and to take those stretch roles, and much like David, when I was going into corporate America and leaving the military, I sat with my sister and we wrote our resume, and I'm like, I don't know how to do anything except for fly helicopters. And she was like, oh my God. And I said, your companies, you have to be, you're about making money. Everything must already be lean, mean. And she's like, welcome to corporate America, right? So it is not like that. There's opportunity to move the organization forward. And so I think, those were some early surprises. And I think, later in my career, what has surprised me about getting put into a sequence of pretty senior roles is what my company valued in my skill sets. And that was nothing to do with the tactical thing. It was, leadership, being able to see how the whole machine works, right? We got to design, we got to buy parts, we got to, and really having that high level view and being really good at getting people in the right jobs and building teams that align behind your culture, right? And so it's interesting as you move through your career, and I'm sure Amy and David will see it too. There's inflection points where what got you to the middle isn't going to get you to the top, and it gets more about influencing and less about being able to plow through problems and get stuff done, right? You have less and less real authority, and it's more about leading and influencing. And I think that can be very surprising for people at that mid-career point, that what got you here isn't going to get you there. And that's okay, so.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Paula, since you're up on the screen next, I'm going to throw out our next question. I think you touched on it a little bit, but when you're thinking about opportunities in this industry, what roles or skill sets are needed, or do you foresee as being in high demand in the future? And I do want to actually open this question up really broadly, because engineering and aerospace is a big sector. So there's a lot of not just the engineering roles, but there's a lot of technical skill sets needed, skills, trades, business operational roles. So it would keep in mind we'd welcome hearing about the full spectrum of opportunities available.
Yeah, and I would say I have a very significant manufacturing portfolio, right? So again, it's not high volume, but you're doing 800, 900 a year. I have a lot of those programs in my portfolio, and we're desperate for the trades, right? And young people who are good with their hands. If you've worked on cars, if you tore your mom's cuckoo clock apart and put it back together, like Amy probably did, those types of things. As my foster son just graduated as a welder, got hired on right away. I'm encouraging my son to go into the trades, because he's not a school kid, right? He likes to do stuff with his hands. Very smart. Those are fantastic jobs. And BAE has a lot of them here in Colorado. So I know, 4-year education. I mean, David went into the Marine Corps. He got his Marine Corps money, right? Like, you can get on with a company with a trade school degree, and then use their tuition assistance. I'm sure Northrop has something like that too, right? So you can use that tuition assistance if you want to go on and get a 4-year degree. So I would say there are many paths in, and some of my best engineers started as hands-on technicians building hardware, got their engineering degree, and they are gold. So I would say the trades are huge. This is probably not going to be surprising to anyone, but software architects, agile software development stuff, and that's ubiquitous, right? So there's so many companies that are doing that. And then particularly for my portfolio, that software is typically software embedded in hardware, which has its own fun and unique challenges, right? So I think the software domain, the trade domains, and then, it's, like I said, I was a history major, so I came in and I did a lot of different things, right? So I think, if you're interested in the industry, it's everything from managing contracts, finance, building stuff, designing stuff. It takes a village to get an exquisite piece of hardware out the door, and it takes a lot of different skill sets. So I would say those are two that I think are just great opportunities. Higher ed is very expensive, and it can be prohibitively expensive for many. And so how you get there, it's a marathon. It is not a sprint. And I would use company's money before I'd use my parents' money, right? So, it's okay. Those are fine options.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that you highlighted that there are a lot of opportunities in this industry besides that 4-year degree. The technical skill side, technicians, all of that is available as a pathway into this industry. Next up, I would love to hear from Amy and David. If I were a high school student right now looking to get into this industry, what are some in-demand roles that you foresee being something I could get into?
Yeah, absolutely. Cyber is massive right now, with the state of how fast things are moving around the globe. The U.S. wanting to keep up with new and innovative and emerging cyber standards. That's huge. Software engineering is always going to be massive. I don't see there being a shortage of demand in aerospace. That being said, as Paula mentioned, it's not always the traditional background. A lot of times, what I've seen is getting the door into the door and then being able to move around. We have folks bouncing from different engineering functions to business functions, people that started in business bouncing into engineering functions. I think the biggest skill set to start learning early are communication skills, because so much of what I've learned being an engineer is that you learn a lot in school, but every job is so specific. Even the title of the job can be the same in the same company, and it's a completely different role. So I would expect, you should expect, there will be a lot of on-the-job training for those roles. What is more difficult to be taught are the communication skills. You want to be somebody that's can be relied on. If you're tasked with work and you get stuck, go tell somebody. Don't let them wait 2 weeks to ask you for it to be handed in, and then they find out you got stuck on day 2. That's something I've run into time and time again and appreciate so much from those that I work with. I think that would be my number one.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight again that the importance of soft skills that you're mentioning, communication, just being able to have those interpersonal skills and interact with others. So I think that's also a really relevant point. It's not just those technical skills that are needed. David, what are you seeing as kind of those in-demand roles coming up in aerospace and engineering?
In my opinion, from what I've seen of employees and people in the workplace, I think if you have a passion for some sort of technical skill, then you're probably capable of doing it with the right official training and on the job training. So I tend to focus more on those soft skills that you're talking about. So communication, to me, communicability is the most important thing to look for, that I would look for, and that you can help develop in yourself. It really doesn't matter. You could have all the solutions to every problem in the world, but if you can't be heard, then those solutions don't really mean anything. And also, if you're leading a team and you're brainstorming ideas and you're trying to come up with solutions based on constraints that are given to you, and you don't have the ability to listen to others' ideas equally, that's part of communication also. So being able to apply those skills, that soft skill, in the environment with technical roles, I think is imperative, as well as the ability to critical think. So it's nice to think about scenarios in which everything in the world is available to you as a resource, but in the real world, you have limitations, you have constraints. So being able to think outside of the box for solutions to problems is another, what I would consider imperative soft skill.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next question. I wanted to ask you guys, are there any misconceptions or knowledge gaps you held about working in this industry that could be helpful to share with other young professionals seeking to enter it? And so, Amy, would you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Having no background in military or much about government or defense, I expected that to be a major issue coming in. When I first started with Northrop, I was working mostly Air Force programs. Now I'm working mostly Space Force programs, and I don't have that history. I didn't come in with the knowledge of rankings in the military or in the government, understanding how the process all works. We have people coming out of the military that have been on the flip side of it, so they come in with that knowledge, and that's amazing to have built in, but it's not a requirement. And that is something that you can pick up. There are roles that don't even interface with the customer at all. So it isn't a concern, but that was a hesitancy for me entering into the defense market.
And David, could you share with us any misconceptions you had?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is a lot of people, when they think of the aerospace industry, they think of aerospace engineers that are working on things that go up into space or that fly around in the air. But aerospace engineering also envelops things that go underwater. And there's a lot more to a company than just aerospace engineering, even if it's an aerospace engineering company. So, for instance, my role is largely support functions. I manage all the organizations that support our organization as a whole. So facilities, for example, or shipping and receiving, logistics. If you have anything with global supply chain, a lot of these things require optimization, and you can apply technical skills to these roles as well, and they're not in what you would consider the formal aerospace engineering realm.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Paula, could you tell us what misconceptions you had about this industry that could be useful for anyone seeking to join it?
It's funny because I was on the other side of the coin from Amy. I'm like, oh, I was in the military, I was in the Navy, and then I was in the Air National Guard, and and I don't have an engineering degree. Like, I don't know if it was so much a misconception or more like I was concerned about my value proposition and what value could I really bring to the table, right? And because that was so important to me. And I think for a lot of years, I felt a little like a poser, right? Like the non-engineer in the engineering company. That was a misconception. I had my own value proposition and, probably more along like a traditional project manager, program manager, finance, those types of things, leadership. And so I think there are a plethora of roles. So I think that was one misconception, was that I would never be as valuable as an RF engineer, and I'm probably still not. But and then I think the other thing that some people think, and you got to decide like what size of a company you want to be in. The aerospace companies tend to be larger, but I would say a misconception is they're super stodgy, they're super slow, they're not innovative. I mean, so as a vice president, a significant portion of our discretionary money is on our independent research and development, right? And so I will tell you, we have brilliant people and brilliant young people and fresh outs from college, like defying physics. And it is the coolest thing to watch. It is so energizing. It's, so I think, is it going to move as fast, as some of the more digital based companies? No, but there's also a lot of cool tech. And like David said, I call it altitude agnostic. We are altitude agnostic. We're everywhere from space and in all three orbits all the way down to underwater, right? And so there's just so many neat things to work on. There's so many really technically pointy problems that our smart folks get to work on and solve. So I think those are a couple of misconceptions I probably had.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that, the aerospace engineering sector has so many other kind of opportunities and roles. It's not just space, it's below ground, it's the ocean, and also there's all types of operational business roles as well, and supportive roles like you and David said. So Paula, I'll kick you off with the last question. We do have a really just awesome aerospace and engineering presence on the Front Range. So I'd like to provide our audience with just some insight into what it's like to work for these companies. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it's like to work for BAE Systems, and anything that sets it apart from other organizations you've worked with?
I think one of the things that's been really great for me, and just over the last year, so recent experiences, Ball was a very unique company. I thought I would retire from it. We'd been around for 65 years. The company's been around for 150, the Ball jars, and I'm a history nut. And so, I didn't think I'd end up going through an acquisition. But the culture mattered so much. And honestly, I feel like BAE was a great match for us culturally. So when integrity, collaboration, transparency, inclusion. So though, you got to find a place where you can believe, right? Like you can't be leaving work and needing to take a shower because it's misaligned with your values, right? And so I can't encourage that enough. Like, what are your core values, and can you find? And no organization's perfect, and there's pockets of excellence and pockets of, oh my God, you're kidding me, right? But aligning around those values. And for me now, I'm driving a business. My organization's about 750 million. So when I have a meeting cancel, I run down to the manufacturing floor and I walk the floor and I see my people, so I don't get to do that very often. So, for me, it's tracking finances, tracking captures, the big captures like Amy's working on. Are they going to come to fruition? How are we going to invest our money? But I will tell you, I love the people I work with. And I just changed office locations. And so I'm kind of closer to a different team. So I see them on a regular basis. But I can count on two fingers in 20 years the number of people I really just didn't like working with in my career. And that's just so important. So I'm kind of boring now, like a lot of meetings, a lot of decision making and pointing and shooting and directing and those types of things, and a lot of integration with BAE because of an acquisition. But the people are fantastic. It's so energizing. And I'm telling you, as an old lady in this industry, the young people are phenomenal. Our fresh out young women and diverse candidates and all those things. And we hire a lot of former military. They're just, I couldn't be happier to get to spend time with them.
Thank you so much. Amy and David, can you wrap us up? What sets Northrop Grumman apart from the other organizations you've worked with?
Yeah, so I've worked from companies that have 30 employees to a site at Northrop that has almost 1,000. Now in Boulder, we're a much smaller site in a giant company. But I think the culture matters so much. I highly echo Paula's sentiment of company values aligning to yours. Northrop is very big on work-life balance. We have a 980 schedule where you get every other Friday off, but you work 9 hours Monday through Thursday, and high flexibility, understanding that if you have a doctor's appointment, you can make those hours up later or the next day. It's not as rigorous. Working for a company that understands that you're a person and you're not just a robot here to turn out work matters so much. The culture is definitely made up from the people and the leadership. We have phenomenal leadership at the Boulder site, and I know that isn't the same across every single Northrop building across the world where we have them, but it does matter so much to find a place that you feel you belong and enjoy coming to every day. Life's too short for it to be painful, like Paula said, for you to go to work or to feel icky when you leave. We're in a really amazing spot right now, and I don't have any reasons to want to look elsewhere. I'm very happy where I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much. David, do you have any thoughts?
I'm pretty much going to echo Paula and Amy again. I would say company culture is super important, and especially valuing work-life balance. That's probably the thing that was missing from my previous roles, which is what inevitably led me to keep searching until I found a home here. As a consulting engineer, I would work sometimes 80, 90 hours a week with business travel. And then also at the pulp and paper mill, you're always on call 24/7. So they can call you whenever they want, and you're expected to be there because you're salaried. So Northrop Grumman does a good job of making sure that we get to go home at the end of the day and spend time with families if we have them, which is nice. The other thing is having a good foundation in or trust in your leadership. It's important that leadership drives home what those values are and make sure that you understand what your place in the company mission is. So kind of along those lines with what Paula was saying, if you can't buy into the mission of your organization, then it's probably not long-term the place for you. So that's something that Northrop Grumman, especially here in Boulder, the leadership here does a really good job of making sure everyone understands their piece in the overall puzzle.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, it sounds like both Northrop Grumman and BAE Systems like really value employees, work-life balance, so that's great to hear. I think this concludes our moderated questions of the panel. But before moving on to the attendee Q&A, I'm going to hand it over to Dara from Workforce Boulder County for a quick introduction.
I'm Dara DiRito with Workforce Boulder County. I'm the Work-Based Learning and Strategic Initiatives Coordinator. And as you just heard from our panelists a little bit about their career path and journey, I wanted to share some resources that we offer that might help you along the way in your career path. So we offer a range of no-cost services that are really designed to help you reach your career and educational goals. We also have a dedicated young adult program that's really specialized one-on-one support for 16 to 24-year-olds. And we focus on exploring career options and pathways, create a customized career and education plan with you. You will have access to resume and interviewing workshops and kind of practice those skills as well as building job readiness and workplace confidence. We can also connect you potentially to a paid internship experience, which is really awesome. As we've heard from some of the panelists, that hands-on experience is really, really key in getting a foot in the door, and that can really help build your professional network and boost your confidence in a real-world working environment. So basically, we're here to support you every step of the way with your career and education journey. So we're kind of like your personal cheerleaders, resource connector, and career guide. We do have 2 office locations. There's one in Boulder and one in Longmont. And then we also have a virtual call center that we're staffing just for any sort of questions you might have. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you so much, Dara. And again, thank you to our panelists for providing your insight and knowledge. Matt, have we had any audience questions so far? Okay, how should young people prepare for security clearance? That's a good one. Does anyone of our panelists want to speak to that?
I'm happy to.
Okay, awesome.
One of the challenges I had when applying for my security clearance was a record of all of the places I've ever lived. I moved around at least twice a school year when I was in college. I was bouncing around a ton. I had a lot of short-term leases. I studied abroad. Keeping record of all of that, you're required to, 1, have those addresses, and 2, have a contact that knew you when you lived there. That I had no idea about that. That was a big shock to me. So going back and trying to figure out 5 or 6 years ago who knew me when I lived here, that's different from the person that knew me when I lived there, was very interesting. It's a pretty straightforward process. Understanding that when you're applying for a security clearance, federal laws apply, not state laws. So I know marijuana is legalized in the state of Colorado. That's just something you'll have to disclose moving forward, and then will be prohibited from using moving forward. So something to be aware of so you're not surprised by it. Those were the 2 main challenges that I had. It did take quite a long time to turn around, and that's something across the industry that is a challenge. The turnaround time, the staffing required for it, depending on the level of clearance, you'll need to have an in-person interview. Sometimes it's done over the phone. During COVID, that was a thing. Sometimes polygraph is required. So it all just depends what kind of job you're applying for. That should be straightforward on the job applications that you're looking for. It would tell you the security clearance required. Some jobs have it required to apply. Some jobs have it, the ability to attain it is required. So they'll put you in for it after you start. As long as you don't get rejected, it's fine. Companies understand that everybody doesn't start with clearance. So oftentimes there's unclassified work that you can start in the meantime.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that kind of really goes into kind of the differences between state and federal law, but that, they're willing to kind of work with you and kind of it's a process, but it's worth it at the end. The next question is, are there any specific certifications that look attractive for entry-level positions, electronics or otherwise? Does anyone here want to speak to this one?
I can talk to it from an IT perspective. So I was the CIO for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years too. So all of those IT certifications, there's just tons of them. Always look great. I would say, if it matches to the job that you're going for, the certifications are great. I'll let Amy and Mike jump in, but I know the IT business and particularly people coming out of the military, a lot of that is driven by certifications and not necessarily by 4-year degrees. So not software engineering. I'm talking like the IT infrastructure that we run the company on.
Okay, I think with that, we're going to conclude our Pathways to Success Workforce webinar panel. Thank you again to our panelists for joining us. I'm going to put them all back on the screen for just a moment. We got some really wonderful insight today, and it was great to hear from your knowledge. Thank you again for everyone joining us.